So I think about that for the space you're in as I think about apps and this digital noise, the apocalypse of this stuff. I know just even being at GE, GE comes to mind specifically for this. When I was at GE, and I'll have a point of view on this, but I'm curious your take. I remember I got tasked with help simplify the architecture, which on the surface sounds like, yeah, sure, okay, let's do it. And then you get in and you're like, we've got 17 enterprise systems doing the exact same thing. And like, what? And we're trying to figure out where these things are and who has them and how to get down to this and how to bring people along for the ride and all this stuff. And I can see where a lot of people would just go, screw it. That just sounds like too much. But like the old adage says, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. As you lean in and help people with this, where do you see people starting? Like, what are some things that you've seen where you go, hey, I get it's overwhelming. I get it may be absolute chaos, but these are some baby steps that you can start taking to actually get you on the right path.
Yeah. There are many different ones, but let me give you an example of customer support, and then also of IT, because I'm more well versed in IT. Where IT, like analysts are becoming more and more engineers, right?
Okay.
It's quite daunting because like freaking hell, I need to know Python, right? And I need to build scripts. I didn't go to computer science school. Like how should I know that, right? And then I would say it's getting easier and easier, because let's say you want to build a script for automating the account creation for Salesforce, or if you want to kind of make password reset self-service, you can literally use ChatGPT and build a script, with ChatGPT, right? You don't need to go anymore, watch those long YouTube videos.
Yeah, watch 900 YouTube videos and search Reddit and like all this stuff to try and be like, I'm trying to figure out how to, and you can only find the one that's like 80% of what you're trying to do, and then you're trying to troubleshoot the rest.
Exactly. And then look at, let's say it's like Overflow, and then you see like, oh, that's semi-relevant, so let me change this. So, listen, like what I would do is like, I would pick an automation challenge, or look at all your IT tickets and see what's the most frequent IT ticket that's coming out, the top 10. In fact, you can even download all your IT tickets and upload it into ChatGPT and create a report. Let's start with that, right?
Okay.
Download all your IT tickets from Jira, upload it into like an AI, right? And kind of, might be a little, I'm not sure whether you're allowed to do that, but if so,
Copilot. There you go. You're on
exactly.
Office 365. So do Copilot or wait for Gemini if you're on the G Suite.
In Google, exactly. So you upload it, and maybe just like creating a report for your executive saying like, hey, I looked through our tickets in the last 365 days. Here's the trends that I'm seeing. Here's our time to resolution. And here's a proposal. It can start with that, even to a manager. Start with a report to a manager and use AI with that. Then the next step would be, okay, now you've identified what the biggest challenges are. Maybe you can do some interviews with certain people and then pick one automation challenge. Okay, I want to automate this task. All right, get an engineer, ask them for support, right? And then build out an initial script, So those are kind of the small steps, the report creation or some simple scripting. That's how you can start, I would say.
Okay.
What do you think?
What I love about that, and I'll unpack it in kind of like learning speak, to just really help.
Please, because like you're the expert actually on that side.
No, yeah, right. But what I love about that is one of the things that I often see is we get overwhelmed with these problems where it's just like, there's so many. And what you hit on there first is break it down and simplify it first. I think going back to this whole thing of oftentimes we feel like, well, we just got to solve everything, and prioritization and contextual understanding are two of the most important things that you can do to make things manageable. Because the reality is you can't solve everything. You don't have the time or the resources, regardless of how supercharged AI is. You just don't. Because if you try and chase them all, you're not going to do it well. And again, being able to use AI as a helper in that, because again, to your point, you could be like, well, now I got to download this thing. I got to write a bunch of VLOOKUPs. I got to write a bunch of all this other stuff. That could feel overwhelming versus going, hey, I consider AI a brilliant intern. That's what I think of it as. It's like that person that's next to you that's super smart and can do literally anything, but they have no context for anything. They don't understand what they're doing. They're just like, you tell me and I'll do it. But if you don't give me enough detail, I'm going to screw it up. And what you described is, here's what I'm trying to do. Look at all this data, help me understand what kind of patterns or what are the biggest problems that you're seeing in there. And not that you just take it and copy and paste it on a PowerPoint slide, but you look at it, you
And
think about it. And to your point, go dig into it, go ask around, go find out that context, because AI doesn't have context. So
no,
it
I like
can't understand. And so this way you can go, I'm going to validate this and I'm going to prioritize this down. And then I'm going to use my critical thinking skills to say, where do I believe we can make the biggest impact with people? And everything you described in there, and I think this is my advice to people in anything, the interpersonal relationships that you have and your interpersonal skills are going to be 1,000 times more important than they've ever been in the past.
I agree.
Because everything you described is, you can't get that context. You can't present to those stakeholders. You can't do all that if you don't know how to influence and build strong relationships. And I think that shows people, hey, you're never going to know where to start if you don't take the time prioritizing and figuring out what that is, and then step forward with it. And maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll blow up in your face. But the good news is you've got technology right alongside. Even if it blows up, you're like, well, we're just going to try this again. What is option 2? What do we think about that? And I think you can help break it down into much more step-by-step guidance.
No, I agree. I mean, like if anyone that listened here can take something out of it is maybe if you're more of a leader, figure out a hot problem that you're trying to solve and give your team like, a data analysis task where they can leverage maybe AI to kind of help them come to a conclusion even faster. Or if you are more on the management or IC side, what's a burning problem that your company has, and we could use that that you have at hand, whether it's Slack messages, Teams messages, tickets, where you could kind of create an interesting report. It can be a small step. It can be a 3-hour exercise, but it's kind of a great way to kind of get into this higher level thinking with the use of this today's technology.